Today we're taking a closer look at all the characters that Rockstar announced yesterday, kind of breaking down more information about them, as well as also how they might play out in the story. Rockstar announced a total of 8 characters. Of course, there's going to be a lot more than just 8 characters in the story. Rockstar's probably going to have over like 20 of them, but these are going to be the main ones that Rockstar is going to be focusing on, at least for now, mainly because it's probably going to be in the beginning of the story, as well as also they're going to probably have the biggest impact on our protagonist. All right, so let's start off with Jason Duvall. This, of course, is one of the protagonists in the game, and he started off in the military and grew up around like in a hood area, somewhere probably in Leonida or possibly from different states. Eventually, he did leave the military for unknown reasons, at least for now, and now he lives in the Leonida Keys in a property that's owned by Brian Hedger, and he is living rent-free as long as he helps Brian with drug running, as well as also certain people that he has problems with. The main thing is that he doesn't want to continue to live this life, and he does have a goal in mind that he wants to focus on, and that possibly can happen with Lucia. So throughout the trailer, we see a little bit of their apartment, kind of see how they're living. It's obviously not in the best condition, and living rent-free probably isn't something that's a good look, because we know that obviously that means that Jason doesn't have that much money to even survive on himself. So now with Lucia, them supporting each other is going to be the way that they're going to leave this type of property and type of life and have the more better high life that they are hoping for. So it's going to be really interesting to see how the beginning is going to be for Lucia as well as Jason, since there could be maybe like 1 or 2 missions where we start off with, you know, just only Jason kind of, you know, living his life doing certain missions, and then eventually maybe get into, you know, Lucia getting out of jail, and then we start from there. Or possibly even the first mission could be Lucia getting out of prison. It's kind of hard to tell for now. But as for Lucia herself, it says that she did learn to fight before she could even walk. So we just know that throughout her whole life, she's pretty much been a fighter and just doesn't take kindness to certain things. And we also know that she ended up in the Leonida Penitentiary fighting for her family. So this could be maybe because somebody tried to attack her family or some other major reason, but we know that she got out due to luck. So she probably originally could have been sentenced to maybe around like a decade in prison, or maybe even longer, maybe less. But eventually, due to some information coming in or some type of evidence just, you know, coming out of nowhere, she is out, and instead of just being locked behind bars, she is now stuck on house arrest. So we're not sure how this house arrest thing is going to be working, since it could just be like, you know, different types of, you know, areas that she can go to, since every type of arrest for house arrest isn't the same. Sometimes it only is confined to your house. Other times it could just be, you know, confined to a certain county, which I think is what Rockstar is mainly going to do, because it wouldn't really make sense to just have Lucia in house all day, then Jason doing missions, at least for the beginning. So I think that's, you know, what's going to make the most amount of sense. She just can't leave in certain parts of Leonida. We also know that Lucia's mom possibly could be in the game somehow through like maybe a video call or maybe even in person. But we do know that since her time growing up with her mom in Liberty City, her mom dreamed for her to have a good life. But it does say instead of half-baked fantasies, she wants to take some matter into her own hands. So we're going to assume that her mom probably wanted her to be in some type of like larger profession, maybe like working in the healthcare business, or maybe a lawyer, or just something that, you know, obviously makes a lot of money. And I guess really just a regular career job. But of course, Lucia is not doing any of that and is focusing more on doing some of the crime life. Now, something I did realize on the newswire is that there is a lot more information for Lucia compared to Jason. So it just kind of shows that even though there is going to be 2 main protagonists, Rockstar might focus a bit more on Lucia, since she is going to be the first ever female protagonist in a GTA game, besides like GTA 1 I think they had. But if you want to go to like the more 3D and HD games, then this would technically be the first one that has a female protagonist, which is going to be really interesting. And of course, we're going to assume that Rockstar is going to be using a similar system to GTA 5, with the character switching between Trevor, Michael, and Franklin. Probably just going to be more seamless though, and a lot more quicker. And Rockstar most likely is just going to make it bound more quicker for the story, since they are in a relationship, compared to Michael, Franklin, and Trevor, since they were living in 3 different parts. And of course, we're living 3 different lives. Next up, we got Cal Hampton. So this is going to be sort of like Lester in the story a little bit, where he kind of focuses on more of the online stuff, as well as also snooping on Coast Guard comms, looking into certain things online. Probably just going to be helping out Jason as well as Lucia when it comes to certain missions. We know that he is a fellow friend of Jason, as well as also a friend and associate of Brian. So he's going to be hanging around Brian's, you know, warehouse and all that, which we'll talk more about later. But just know that that's pretty much the character he's going to be. Kind of a side character, but of course somewhat very important to the story, especially when it comes to planning certain heists as well as bigger missions. And then for the next character we have, that is Booby Ike. This is a character that actually grew up in the streets just like Jason, but decided to go more into the business scene and focusing on building a legitimate empire. So he has a lot of buildings in real estate throughout the state of Leonida, as well as also the strip club, which is the Jack of all hearts. And they explain for him to basically be like a really calm and fun character to be around, but when it comes to business, he is going to be very serious since it is going to be focusing on making money. It does say that he does have drug money, so we know he's not officially fully legitimate, but he is trying to focus more on that, as well as also having money on the side for other necessities. And besides focusing on the strip club and probably some other real estate properties, he's also investing with music mogul Daquan, which we'll talk about in a little bit, focusing on the Only Raw Records, which is what they're going to be investing in. Now, Daquan Priest also grew up in the streets just like the other two, so he is more of a hustler than a gangster. So instead of like killing people or doing some drive-bys or whatever it is, he does focus more on trying to make money while also selling drugs. At least that's what he did previously, but now he's focusing on Only Raw Records. He's also focusing on the Real Dimes, which is a group of music artists, which we'll see in a little bit. They're focusing on obviously being more popular as well as growing, so that's the main focus when it comes to Daquan. As well as the other two, they want to grow and obviously make a name for themselves and make a lot of money. Another thing we can assume from this is that obviously Rockstar had a big scene when it came to music inside the trailer, as well as also of course from GTA 5 with the Contract DLC. So Rockstar is probably gonna be focusing a lot more. They obviously saw how successful that was, so if they want to make a lot more money with the game, as well as also just be a bit more interesting, Rockstar will be focusing a lot more on having music more incorporated, probably having some more bigger artists too in the game. So you might see the likes of like maybe like bigger artists as well as rappers. So that's gonna be something that we could end up having in GTA 6. And of course, for Real Dimes, it does say viral videos and viral hooks. These are the characters that we probably did see when it came to the first trailer, where they had the women twerking on the vehicles as well as dancing. So this would probably be something that they were recording and just having a cool music video. So their names is Bay Lux and then also Roxy. So we're just gonna have the group name of Real Dimes. They've been friends from high school, as well as also they kind of have their time selling drugs on the street, as well as also just focusing on a rap presence and making music. So the main thing, like I was saying, is to just focus on making music, having fun, recording music videos, and of course just trying their best to make a lot of money. And they're only one hit away from making fame. So they had one hit single with the rapper DWNPLY, and now since they're signed with Daquan, as well as also focusing on the Only Raw Records, if they do continue to make music, they could have another hit, making them a lot more money and a lot more popular. Raul Bautista is going to be the next character that Rockstar kind of shows off. So this person is of course going to be someone that I think is going to be a huge role in mentoring and showing Jason and Lucia the ways to make a lot of money. So we know that he's an experienced bank robber. He's probably been very similar to kind of Michael, where they kind of focused on making a lot of money in the past, and they kind of slowed down a little bit now most likely, but they still have the little runs here and there. So I think they're going to be a kind of a teacher moment where they focus on helping out Lucia and Jason for certain crimes that they want to attack. I think when Lucia and Jason do first start off in the story, they're going to probably focus on smaller businesses, like we kind of seen them robbing like a corner store before. So they're probably going to have a lot more when it comes to Raw, pretty much kind of showing them how to rob like banks or maybe even other cool places as well. So that's gonna be really interesting to get into. He also does mention that he does have that confidence to take risks, as well as also wants to bring in the biggest rewards, and he also has a crew with him. So it just kind of shows his personality a little bit, him focusing on making sure that everything gets done, they get the most amount of money, and they're ready to just get out of there when the time is ready. And lastly, with Brian Heder, so he pretty much is one of the biggest drug runners in Leonida. And we also know of course that he is some type of loan shark, and he does own other businesses as well as properties, of course one of them being the one that Jason lives in, but he probably also has some other clients that he does the same thing for, or at least maybe they have to pay rent. And he also has some type of like huge port base as well. And then we also see a little bit of his third wife, Lori. This character seems to be more of like a side character, but she is mentioned like a few times, so I would assume that she probably is going to be somewhat important for the story. So we're definitely going to be seeing her a lot as well. So I think he's kind of like the El Rubio a little bit with the drugs and stuff, but I feel like he's going to be mainly important when it comes to the beginning of the story, since that's where we're going to be starting off in one of his properties. But eventually, once Jason and Lucia end up moving to different places, then that's probably going to be where he kind of maybe isn't that important, but he's still going to be part of the story as well. Regardless, though, really interested to see how Rockstar is going to be doing this stuff. I want to break down a lot more, since there's just so much interesting, so many theories, so many assumptions that are coming from all of this, and it's like you really do know a lot of information now, so it's like you can make these assumptions. Before we didn't know much, but now with so much information, it just seems like it's so obvious what things and what direction Rockstar is going to be going in for Grand Theft Auto 6. So I hope you guys stay enjoying, and of course I'll be having a lot more on this, so if you guys want to look forward to that, you already know what to do. Subscribe and put on post notifications, drop a like as well, and I'll see you on the next one. Peace.